السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. In the many stories that the Quran narrates for us, it refers to many characters. Some of these characters are good, some of these characters are bad. And of course, as we said, when the Quran narrates for us stories, it is not narrating for us bedtime stories or stories for fun or stories for us to entertain ourselves, but it is actually presenting for us stories and people and characters and examples so that we are able to reflect and derive lessons in a way that we are able to devise principles that we live our lives by. Yes? So these characters that are mentioned in the Quran, usually there is a moral label also attached to them. As in, they are either good, as we said. This is when the Quran describes these people as what? For example, the mu'mineen, people of faith, the muttaqeen, people who are pious, the mukhlisin, the devout and sincere people, the mukhlasin, the selected people. So there are different labels or descriptions that Allah describes the good characters. Also, there are villains in the Quran, and we see many of them. Now, when we say villains, when we say bad characters, bad people, there's one thing that many of us tend to do or think when we come across descriptions of these people. And that is what? When we see the Quran talking to us about Fir'aun, for example, or Haman, for example, or these characters, we tend to think that these are people out there. That this is someone else. That these are people in history, for example. We tend to think that I'm not that. We tend to think that these characteristics are not in me, and Allah is talking about someone completely different, someone who's not related to me in any way whatsoever. We might have this tendency. What I want to urge myself and yourselves in this very short talk, inshallah, is that whenever I mention something about this villain that I'll talk about tonight, try to think, do I have that characteristic? Am I exercising it in my personal life, in my family, at work, at school, at uni? Yeah? A bit of reflection. So, there are many characters that are villains in the Quran, bad characters. The Fir'aun, the Pharaoh, Haman, the minister of Fir'aun, Qarun, the example of that person who was wealthy and who was poor initially, but then he became wealthy and then he forgot about God and his afterlife. Examples like Namrud, who confronted Ibrahim alayhi salam and who would argue with Ibrahim. He would say to Ibrahim, look, your Lord brings life and death, I bring life and death. And he would command some people to be executed, and then he would pardon them, and therefore he gave them life. So he was kind of playing it smart with Ibrahim. And then Ibrahim told him, well, my Lord brings the sun from the east, you bring it from the west. And then he was defeated. Or for example, the Samiri of the people of Moses, yes, who brought this innovation in deen. That's an example of innovation in deen. Or Qabil, yes, the one who killed his brother. Or the son of Nuh, or the wife of Nuh, or the wife of Lut. So all these characters, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning them for a reason. That's one thing we should always remember. Not for entertainment. For a reason, for you. So that when you personally are reading these, you need to derive a lesson. Know what that lesson is. And this is where we need to reflect. Tadabbur. أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ. Do they not reflect and ponder upon the Quran, or are there seals on the hearts? Inshallah, there are no seals on any of your hearts. Inshallah. So the villain for tonight is Fir'aun. Fir'aun. One of the prophets, or the prophet that is mentioned the most frequently in the Quran is which prophet? You agree? Do you agree? It's Prophet Musa alayhi salam. Ahsantum. Yes? Prophet Musa. And therefore, within the context of the story of Prophet Musa comes the villain, Fir'aun. And therefore, Fir'aun is mentioned very, very frequently in the Quran. So we see what the Quran is talking about Fir'aun. And in one phrase or in a summary, we could describe Fir'aun or Pharaoh as a person or a character that represents political corruption. Political corruption. What do I mean? Let's see what the Quran talks about Fir'aun. In a few verses, not all of them. Chapter 44, verse 30, it says, مِنْ فِرْعَوْنَ إِنَّهُ كَانَ عَالِيًا مِنَ الْمُسْرِفِينَ. Fir'aun was truly a tyrant, a transgressor, someone who exceeds the limits. Fir'aun exceeded the limits in using his authority and power in corruption. Chapter 7, verse 133, when it talks about the family, the dynasty of Fir'aun, because it seems this Fir'aunness was a lifestyle, was a way of life of this dynasty, of these people, of this family. And Allah talks about Ali Fir'aun, Al Fir'aun. They persisted, فَاسْتَكْبَرُوا وَكَانُوا قَوْمًا مُجْرِمِينَ. They persisted in arrogance. We talked about arrogance. They were arrogant. And were wicked and criminal people. We read some verses about Fir'aun, what he used to do, slaughtering children, killing people, right? Transgressing, so exceeding the limits in these, criminal. The Quran describes them. Also in chapter 20, verse 43, when Allah commands Moses and Harun, the two prophets, to go and speak to whom? To Fir'aun. He tells them, اذهبا إلى فرعون إنه طغى. Go to Pharaoh, both of you, for he has truly transgressed all bounds. He crossed all bounds. And Fir'aun, Allah quotes him in the Quran where he would say, this is my kingdom. Do I not have the kingdom of Egypt? Do you not see the rivers flowing beneath me? Great power and wealth and possession. And that made him feel what? Arrogant, feel pride. And we mentioned what causes you to feel pride and arrogant, or to feel proud and arrogant. When you see perfections in yourself, ownership in yourself, and you see others don't have it, and therefore you believe you are better than those. You're far more elevated. That's a Fir'auni character. That's why it's a very, very, very dangerous thing to feel. So Fir'aun, he also claimed that he speaks for people. He also claimed that he represents them. He claimed that he is what? Their God. He's their God. Meaning what? Rabbukumul a'la. We know what Rabb means, yeah? Rabb is the one who what? Sustains, gifts, nurtures, feeds. That's a Rabb. That's a Rabb. Saying, look, look, look. I give you, I feed you, I nurture you. Your affairs are in my hands. I am bestowing upon you. Not only that, and he claimed to be God. He claimed to be God. Why? Interesting how the Quran talks about Fir'aun, what he said. He would say to his people in chapter 28, verse 38, وَقَالَ فِرْعَوْنُ يَا أَيُّهَا الْمَلَأُ مَا عَلِمْتُ لَكُم مِّنْ إِلَهٍ غَيْرِي. Fir'aun would say, Pharaoh declared, O chiefs. So these are the chiefs of the people, the elite. He would tell them, O people, I know of no other God for you but myself. I thought on your behalf, I've done my research for you, and I tell you, I did not find other God for you than myself. You don't have to think, I think for you. Interesting how he phrased it. So he reduced the whole people. Yes, people have no opinion, have no right to think. Another verse actually, Quran chapter 40, verse 29. قال فرعون ما أريكم إلا ما أرى وما أهديكم إلا سبيل الرشاد. So Fir'aun assured his people. He said what? I am telling you only what I believe. I show you only what I see. You have no opinion of your own. I tell you your opinion. And I am only leading you to the way of guidance. So this is the character. You know, we now can understand what kind of a person Fir'aun was from that angle. Now one might ask, what happened such that these people became so obedient to Fir'aun? How could it be that someone reached actually that stage? Also the Quran gives us hints about this. And remember, generally, the Quran, when it talks about Fir'aun, it talks about this icon of political corruption. Yes? You can think, if you want, about some tyrants that were there in history. And you can see the similarities and the resemblances. You can think about figures that you know nowadays, that they actually represent the actions of Pharaoh in what he has done. Yes? Photocopy. Photocopy. And it's very clear, very, very clear. I'll leave it to you, your imagination, your research, your experiences. Yes? Someone who claimed to be, look, I set for you the standard of morality. What I do is moral. What I say is moral. What you say doesn't make sense. Let me tell you what the Quran talks about Fir'aun. Chapter 43, verse 54. فَاسْتَخَفَّ قَوْمَهُ فَأَطَاعُوهُ إِنَّهُمْ كَانُوا قَوْمًا فَاسِقِينَ. The Quran talks clearly about what Fir'aun did so that people followed him. Or before people followed him. Quran said, what translates to, and so he fooled his people. That's one translation. Another translation is that فَاسْتَخَفَّ, meaning he requested, he sought for them the khiffa, simplicity. He sought for them simplicity. He put them in a place where he's coming and presenting himself. Look, 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 look. I'm simplifying things for you. You don't have to be sophisticated. I'm doing it for you. Simplifying things for them, and they obeyed him. They obeyed him. So basically what he's done is that he's making these people naive and shallow. Yes? Apply this to also modern political corrupt regimes or systems. Yes? You corrupt the education, or you inject what you want in the educational system. You make people naive. You make people focus on things that distract them from what matters. You make people dwell in ittiba' al-hawa, following desires and pleasures. Therefore, they're distracted from whatever is sophisticated in the way governments are run, like Fir'aun wanted it to be run. You drown people in poverty, so that all the worries they have are what? How can I have food on the table at the end of the day? That's what I worry about from the time I wake up till the time I sleep. I don't really have time to think about criticizing that political figure. Diverting people's attentions, having them live in psychological terror. Fir'aun was massacring people. It is sufficient to see what Fir'aun also has done to the magicians of Fir'aun, his magicians. If you remember that beautiful scene, that Fir'aun, what he does is that he calls Musa and he says, look, I want you to come and challenge my magicians. And he calls upon the magicians and he calls for a big rally, a big event. He wants Moses to be humiliated in public. And he brought his magicians and they challenge each other. The magicians realized what Moses is bringing was truth, was correct, was right. In public they realized it. And in public they had the courage to admit and submit before God and say, look, we believe in this God of Moses. We can't really fool ourselves anymore. They didn't wait. They didn't wait. They announced it. What did Fir'aun tell them? He threatened them. He said, look, you are doing this without my permission. I shall cut your hands, I shall cut your feet, I shall crucify you. Terrorism. Yes? That's what these kind of systems do as well. They terrorize people so that they don't speak a word of truth. They terrorize them in different ways. It doesn't have to be by physical mutilation like Fir'aun proposed. Terrorize them so that they stop speaking any word of truth. Also, Quran chapter 28, verse number 4. إِنَّ فِرْعَوْنَ عَلَى فِي الْأَرْضِ وَجَعَلَ أَهْلَهَا شِيَعًا. Indeed, Pharaoh arrogantly elevated himself in the land and divided its people into subservient groups. Dividing. That's a principle. It's not a new principle in political theory. Divide and conquer. It's from the time of Pharaoh. Dividing people. Whenever there's an opportunity for unity, no, not allowed. Unity amongst Muslims, not allowed. You see tyrants of this modern day and age now. Whenever there's an opportunity of unity between Muslims, it's not allowed. In fact, they stir up fitna. They find any excuse to stir up fitna. They present Islam as what? Oh, Muslim means you have to be a Sunni or your enemy, the Shia. Or you have to be a Shia or your enemy, the Sunni. These two are enemies. See how some people are educated about Muslims. No. The oppressed people are not allowed to be united. Whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. Yeah. Divide and conquer. Fir'aun used that strategy. Also, the Quran said that Fir'aun appealed to the emotions of the people as well. Fir'aun presented himself as someone who's caring about the culture of people, who's caring about their religion. Do you want to hear what the Quran said about Fir'aun? What Fir'aun said? Quran chapter 40, verse 26. وَقَالَ فِرْعَوْنُ ذَرُونِي أَقْتُلْ مُوسَى وَلْيَدْعُ رَبَّهُ. Fir'aun said, let me kill Moses and let him call upon his Lord. Let him do whatever he wants. I want to kill him. Why? I truly fear, إِنِّي أَخَافُ أَن يُبَدِّلَ دِينَكُمْ. I truly fear that he may change your religion and traditions. Moses is bringing something new that might change your traditions. That should not be allowed. Your traditions should remain. You remember what the Quraysh used to say about what the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam brought. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. He's changing our traditions, our customs, which have been there for hundreds of years. We cannot allow that. Fir'aun appealed to this aspect of the people, so that people cannot think about any reform, cannot think about improving themselves, about cultivating their resources so that they make their situation better. No, 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 no. This person, Moses, is coming to change what you have, therefore he's a danger. Let me kill him. أَوْ أَن يُظْهِرَ فِي الْأَرْضِ الْفَسَادِ. Or he might cause mischief in the land. Fir'aun is warning his people that Moses is spreading corruption in the land. Let's kill him. Irony, honestly, irony. And again, think about modern day terms. Think about these days. Think about examples that you could imagine. So, the Fir'aun also, or the Quran is telling us about Fir'aun that he used this terror, he used this slaughtering of children, denying people of having future. يُذَبِّحُ أَبْنَاءَهُم. One interpretation of this is slaughtering the new generation. Another is actually making the new generation ineffective, futile. Terrorizing them, making them despair, make them feel hopeless of any change. There's no hope. Khalas, that's it. Essentially, you are deactivating any new generation. These are some examples that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran, some hints, so that He would tell us, look, becoming a Fir'aun doesn't start from becoming a Fir'aun, from Fir'aun himself. Becoming a Fir'aun starts from these elements when they appear. These elements, they might appear in your home, my brother, my sister. Are you at home someone who thinks on the behalf of your children, for example? You're not allowed to think. No, I think for you. This is the right way. Or my wife suggests something. No, 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 no. You're changing our culture. But it's what pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This culture might be wrong, might be something different. We need to revisit, No. Are we doing this? Are we presenting or demonstrating elements of a Fir'auni behavior so that we are paying attention, so that we are able to pay attention to it? We should think about it, we educate ourselves about it, discipline ourselves such that we don't grow into a bigger Fir'aun when life presents itself for us, when temptations happen, when we elevate in our ranks in this dunya. If now you don't eliminate your little Fir'aun, one day you will become your own Fir'aun in your own position that you will be in. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inshallah, that He may help us reflect on our own selves before we accuse others of having these elements or attributes and hence judging them. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inshallah, that He may cure us of any disease, any sickness that would turn us into a Fir'aun one day. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Salawat.